Good morning, everyone. This is the second session here at this venue, Resistant Readings. We have two speakers, Kavita, Kané and Volga, and the moderator for this session is Anjali Gupta. Ma'am, yeah. Kavita Kané is the author of 9 novels based on lesser-known women in Indian mythology: Karna's Wife, 2013, Sita's Sister, 2014, Menaka's Choice, 2015, Lanka's Princess, 2016, The Fisher Queen's Dynasty, 2017, Ahalya's Awakening, 2019, Saraswati's Gift, 2021, Tara's Truce, 2023, and the latest, Bhima's Wife, 2025. She has postgraduate degrees from the University of Pune in English Literature and Mass Communication and Journalism. After 2 decades with Magna Publishing and DNA, she became a full-time author. Our second speaker is Volga, who is a foremost literary figure in Telugu today. Her novels and short stories introduced a feminist perspective into Telugu literary political discourse, enabling several writers to articulate their experiences as women. Her novel, Swecha, 1987, marks a watershed in women's writing in Telugu and was translated into all Indian languages by the National Book Trust of India. Her anthologies like Rajakiya Kathalu, 1992, and Vimukta, 2013, exposed the oppression and control of women's bodies and paved the way for more feminist stories in Telugu. Translated into English and several Indian languages, her works have received many awards, including the Sahitya Academy Award and Ladli Media Award for Gender Sensitivity. Our moderator, Anjali Gupta, is an assistant professor teaching journalism at the Sarojini Naidu School of Arts and Communication, University of Hyderabad. She was a journalist for over 16 years in television, digital media, and development communications. At CNBC TV 18 in New Delhi, she was a correspondent and features producer for over 6 years. As web editor and images manager for ActionAid, she researched, wrote, and edited features for their website and publications. She also contributed to online and print newspapers and magazines, including The Wire, The Helka, The Hindu, and The Times of India. Her areas of interest include journalist safety, women's empowerment, and animal rights and welfare. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this very relevant discussion. Am I audible? Yeah. This very relevant discussion, and welcome to Volga and welcome to Kavita Kané. Let me just ask by sort of pointing to the fact that some of these lesser known characters were sidelined in our ancient epics, our beloved ancient epics. And they happen to be, in our imaginations, ancestors to people who continue to be put on margins, right? There are several marginalized groups who would not find representation even in today's mainstream media. And here are our ancient epics that did not give them enough space. So let me just ask both of you, what attracts you to these characters? What made you write on these characters? And at the moment, what made you think of Sabri and what made you think of Hidambi?
Thank you, Anjali. Yes, these seems to be marginalized characters, but in popular perception, in the folk Ramayanas and popular stories, films, songs, the Sabari character was portrayed in a way that she is a matchless devotee of Sri Ramachandra. So when I read Valmiki Ramayana, in the Aranyakanda, it is a huge part of Ramayana. And Valmiki named it as Aranyakanda, but the story is about Rama's Vanavasa. He can easily named, that is Vanavasa Kanda. But he named it, Valmiki named it Aranyakanda and put Sabari there in 4 slokas. Sabari, with no doubt, was a tribal woman who is waiting for Rama, alone, lonely, longing to see Rama. Why these women, tribal women, and in the huge Aranyakanda, sitting alone, waiting for Rama? That question bothered me a lot. And why Valmiki didn't write much about Shabari? Just very minimal information about her. So, when I thought that Valmiki described Aranya in a very, very beautiful manner, nothing parallel to his description of Aranya. In that Aranya, Shabari, a tribal woman. So I think Valmiki restrained himself from talking about Shabari. Why Shabari wanted to meet Rama and what she wanted to tell Rama. Then I thought of the deforestation of there, then and now. Always cities are growing up and fallen, forests were demolished, and civilization will creep into the forests. So Shabari wants something about it to Rama. That why the states, the kingdoms are coming into our lands and spoiling the nature. So if I can put these things, it will become both contemporary, and because the issue is as contemporary and as ancient as Ramayana and nowadays in some states, how deforestation is going on for mining and all those things. So I took Shabari and put her voice as the voice of Aranyavasis. And her whole philosophy about knowledge, in Telugu, I juxtapose Jnanam, Ajnanam, Nagarikata, Anagarikata. What we are really thinking Nagarikata is really Nagarikata. What we are thinking really Jnanam is real Jnanam. So we have to think about it deeply. The people, the tribal people who are living very peacefully, coexisting with all other creatures of the forests are anagarikas, we killing everybody without any reason. Every creature on the earth, including human beings, without any reason. Are we civilized? Are we knowledgeable people? These questions bothered me, and I put into discussion with the character, wise character of a tribal woman, Shabari, of whom Valmiki restrained himself. Why? I don't know, maybe some reasons, restrained himself for talking much.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for inviting me to this festival. Coming to your question, why I chose Hidimbi? Simply because no one knows about her. I mean, even the title is pretty subversive. It's called Bhim's Wife. Because her identity is that, an identity which unfortunately and very cruelly, she was not accepted. They did not give her that title at all. Hidimbi is Bhim's first wife. She predates Draupadi. And she comes into the scene when actually the Pandavas and Kunti are at the lowest. They are refugees. They they shelter in a forest called Kamyaka, and here Hidimbi and Hidimbi's brother rule the land. And I think here I've taken what she has exactly said, how they are Rakshaks, not Rakshas. You know, they are actually the protectors of their forest. And they do not want intruders, trespassers coming. So that fierceness, I have just tried to see the other point of view. You know, it's like it's their land. These people are intruding into their land. And it is like, okay, they are the Rakshas. Why do you call them the Rakshas? They are the tribals, they are the original inhabitants of those lands. And not only that, I mean, when you see Hidimbi, she is non-conforming in every way. Like, I think she sort of is the stereotype of the other woman. She's always been portrayed as other woman in the sense she is different from the conventional image of the women all the royals knew by that time. Like, she falls in love with a stranger. She decides to marry him. She defies her brother. She marries out of a. She not only she actually approaches the mother-in-law, and she says, "I want to marry him, marry your son," and there is a deal done that okay, you can marry my son, but we will leave after your son is born. She accepts it, knowing that this is what she wants at that particular point of time. And then when Bhim and the Pandavas leave the forest, she raises the son as a single mother, not as a jungle person or like a tribal. Like she raises him as a warrior, definitely as a warrior because A, she is the queen of the land, and secondly, this is as the leader of his people. So the whole thing of Hidimbi, and we don't see this narrative at all. So what I wanted to do was reframe her position in the narrative. So in doing so, you don't see her as this wilting wife who has been abandoned and scorned and the forgotten partner, but rather I think an extremely fiercely independent woman who builds her own world and rules that world.
Yeah, it is a little, strange, and one would like to, it's out of curiosity, I'd like to ask, Valmiki himself came from a marginalized tribe, right? And over the years, so many retellings have happened. Yeah, maybe they didn't depart too much from the original versions, but so many reimaginations, retellings have happened. What is it about the contemporary moment that is lending itself to these feministic readings, to these readings which are sort of really iconoclastic, challenging the status quo? What is it about now that this is happening? Yeah.
What is now happening, everybody knows, no? Everybody knows how we want to make them civilized. We want to make them as we are. We are not, we are not caring about the difference. We are not giving respect to plurality. So we want to make them the replicas of ourselves who are already spoiled by our own civilization. That's my thing. So when I wrote this novel, I want that something we have to think. The contemporary issues always matter us. Though we take epic stories, either Hidimbi or as her power to rule her own land, or Shabari to propagate the goodness and the coexisting with nature, we have contemporary concerns. Why contemporary concerns enter into an epic story? It is a very tricky question. I think in every age, epics are rewritten, retold, not in the modern times. For example, Kalidasa. Kalidasa took a story from Mahabharata and wrote Abhignana Sakuntala. Why he wrote Abhignana Sakuntala? Because he wanted to save the king Dushyanta from lying. In Mahabharata, Dushyanta lied, and we all know it. But for Kalidasa's time, the need is to save the king. to say that king is right, always right, king is the boss, everything. So Kalidasa made Dushyanta, that little story of Abhignana, that means the ring, Durvasa, Sapa, all this he created, he imagined the story and saved Dushyanta. That is his contemporary concern. Like that, many people, according to their times, took epic stories and filled them with the contemporary concerns. And my thing is, the contemporary issue is the climate change, global warming, deforestation, everywhere. We are all seeing how the world is burning, like everywhere in the world. So I took it. There is a relation between literature and history, contemporary history and literature. It's not about the content. In whatever content we take, the important, really important concern will creep into the story, epic story. Whatever is the age, the writer, whatever is at the times the writer, the contemporary concerns will creep into, and it became history. So that is the relationship between history and literature, and that is why this forest, I think not Sebari, but the forest is the main protagonist of my novel. Because when you read the novel, you can find out the protagonist is forest. Forest is speaking. Forest with all its wealth is coming before us. This is me. Why? Why you are destroying me? Every creature in this creation is very important. Because you are human beings, because you have some intellectual capacities, like talking and all that, you thought you are the supreme. But because you have some real some capacities other than the other creatures or other living beings, you have to be more responsible. When you have more capacities, we have to be more responsible. That is what Sabari want to tell Rama. Be responsible to the nature. So that is the goodness. We have to, instead of weapons, instead of arms, instead of destroying weapons, we have to create goodness which make all the living and non-living beings in the nature equal, and we human beings respect them and they also love us. That is my concern in writing this novel.
I think coming to your question, why the retellings are happening now, I think they were always happening. In regional literature, definitely. It's been happening since a century ago. Because I think...
My question about retelling was about
Why-
challenging the status quo.
Yes, why
that
the
kind of
marginalized women now?
Yeah.
So exactly, the marginalized women were always covered in regional literature. Honestly, we are writing in English. I am writing in English. She has. I mean, that is exactly what I'm trying to say. I think this genre or this theme is a constant refrain in regional literature. Resistant readings I have been a part of. I think, Indian literature, where English is concerned, feminist retelling is happening, again, has been happening. Why it is happening is because I think women have to tell women's stories. Men have been telling their stories for centuries together. I mean, you know about Ram, Lakshman, Ravan, Karna, you know about Arjun, Krishna. You know about one Draupadi and one Sita. What about the other women? I mean, can you imagine a Mahabharat without a Satyavati? Can you imagine Ramayana without Tara or Shabri? I mean, these are women who supposedly have very minor roles, but major impact in the story. They actually plot pushers. They move the plot. They're not just there to populate the epic at all. And that's what has been conceived. You know, women have been completely seen as secondary or they have been villainized. The only women other characters we remember are the vamps. Surpanaka, Kaikai, Mantra, and I think Mahabharat, I think you wouldn't say any women, there's no Mrs. Shakuni, so whatever. But what I'm trying to say is they are just footnotes in this entire story of war and valor. What about war and valor? How did it affect the women? How did it affect the woman as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, as a princess, as a soldier's wife, whatever? And how did that war affect her? It is exactly Hidimbi is the classic case of that. She raises a son on her own. The father has no part in the parenting, and he comes at a very convenient time, picks him up, and uses him for the war he wants. I mean, she sacrifices her son for a cause which never embraced her. So these stories, I mean, this is just Hidimbi's story. There is Tara. I mean, all the women, I think, as I said before, they deserve a 300-page book because they have a story of their own.
Now would be a good time to read a passage from your books.
In English?
You can decide.
But some of them are. I told a minute before that the main protagonist was the forest. So in this novel, there is a Maharshi called Matanga who is an outcast, and because he is an outcast and doing tapas, the kingdom punished him and insulted him and harassed him like anything. With all the insults, injuries and harassment, he came to the Pampa forest along with Sabari. And how that forest embraces him is the passage I am going to read. The city treated me inhumanly. Clinging on to that reality, nursing my wounds from the stone pelting, just for being an untouchable, I wondered when the scars inside me would heal. I questioned my ability to start my sadhana again. I arrived in this forest with such overwhelming thoughts. The moment I stepped inside it, I encountered gigantic elephants. My instinctive reaction was fear. Tuskers were not new to me, but these ones seemed like tiny mountains. They moved together in harmony. I can still picture the scene in my mind. I stood frozen, anxious, unsure. But then the elephants reached out and caressed me softly with their trunks. Sabari squeezed her already shut eyes tighter in fear. For the first time, I realized the softness and sensitivity hidden with those trunks. In the next moment, Sabari and I found ourselves in the embrace of the gentle giants, the delicate touch of hundreds of elephants. Later, a tusker picked me up and put me on its back. Sabari had all but passed out. Many more gentle giants escorted us. By the time we reached the banks of the Pampa, hundreds of branches grazed against me and creepers coiled all around me. The flowers delicately stroked me before showering us with the myriad scents. Hundreds of birds spread their wings above us and soared, singing sweetly. Not to mention the snakes who snuck out of the foliage to peck me. Scarlet bugs, fireflies, and countless insects kissed my hands. The incredible journey through the forest to the banks of Pampa liberated me from the bonds of life. Every creature of the forest joined me on our journey, if only for a few steps. Every being greeted me lovingly. I was enraptured. I couldn't tell if it was a dream or happening in reality. Amidst such feelings of ecstasy, I caught my first glimpse of Pampa, the river. After making our way through the dense forest, the sight of pure blue waters filled me with both an uncontainable joy and unsettling sadness. I wept uncontrollably. From the depths of my being, an anguish, or perhaps a joy, swelled up like a waterfall and merged with the Pampa. The tuskers were silent witnesses to all that passed. The Pampa, too, held back from making any sound. Nature, in its entire being, listened to me, my pain, my sorrow, and my distress. With deep affection, it embraced all my emotions and absorbed them into itself. It observed, in quietude, me as I traversed my tumultuous feelings, allowing joy and peace to emerge slowly within me. In time, all my sorrows disappeared. The only thing that remained inside me was bliss, pure, unadulated bliss, a bliss that transcended the dichotomy of body and soul, a bliss beyond meaning.
This is a conversation, of course, a fictional conversation between Draupadi and if Hidimbi had met Draupadi and Draupadi had, what would the conversation be? I think the chapter is on that. I'm just reading out a snippet. Draupadi says, I was sung, you were unsung, yet both of us had to bear the last dregs of humiliation. We undeniably have overlapping oppressions which position us in different ways, and both of us strive to fight it. The seeds of women's truth is never allowed to grow in freedom. Hidimbi gave a short laugh. But still, most would like us to be, most would like us to be rivals. Me as the jealous, unappreciated wife, and you the arrogant one whose sense of self-importance does not flatter male egos. The world is more interested in the ugliness of a royal family feud than in recognizing uglier issues like our injustice or ignominy. That was probably why Bhim didn't want us to meet. Draupadi smiled wanly, but I was very curious to meet you. Why? Hidimbi raised a skeptical eyebrow. To check on the lowly mountain girl, the Rakshasi wife? Draupadi looked indignant. Mountain girl? You are the most progressive and independent woman I have seen. You dared to disobey your brother, you chose your man, you dared to fall outside your community, dared to express it, dared to propose to him, dared to tell his formidable mother that you wanted to marry him, dared to have a child with him, dared to raise a child as a single mother. Moreover, you are the most politically savvy, leading your clan, dismissed otherwise as the most despicable Rakshasi. But you give them purpose and pride. By uniting the warring tribes, you have maintained peace and harmony in the forest that people once dreaded to enter. And above all, you have groomed your son to be the future leader of your people and this land. Because I knew he would never be accepted as the heir of the Kurus, despite being the eldest grandchild, said Hidimbi. Frankly, that was the sole reason I preferred to stay back in the forest, to give my son his due. Rather, he be the prince of his land than be an unwanted son in Hastinapur. Draupadi found the color rising up her neck momentarily awkward. She reached out to Hidimbi, a soft hand in the calloused one. I wanted to meet that proud woman whose dignity is worth praising as without a drop of tears or self pity, you accepted your decisions, despite so many restrictions imposed on you. All this shows you as a true woman of enormous strength and dignified womanhood. Hidimi stared at Draupadi, her eyes dark with wry irony. Dignified womanhood? Possibly I was not arrogant in thinking I'm so special, so superior, so different. Draupadi flushed. Is that what you think of us? Hidimbi gave her a hard, unrelenting look. Power is complex, even situational. Power is dynamic, forceful, echoed through people in privilege and position. I have borne that, so have you. But our endurance is often mistaken for weakness. It's what you think of lesser women like me, who are so often socialized to silence, said Hidimi with acerbic alacrity. But I shan't stay silent where my son is concerned, she added warningly.
Readings. Thank you for that. I would now like to ask about where you get the courage to challenge these dominant notions about power, about who has been marginalized over the centuries. Where do you get that courage, especially in current times, where whatever is seen as sacred should not be questioned? You know, people are quick to take offense. Where do you find that courage to bring in a questioning attitude to some of our sacred, holy texts?
I think when our questions are coming from an honesty and justifiable questions, we automatically get the courage. If we are really care about the society, if we really care about the immediate contemporary world, what is happening, I think the courage will come. And yes, these times are tense. We have to be very balanced in our writing. We can't write irresponsibly. And I think in this novel and my other epic stories, Liberation of Sita, and in Yashodhara also, I try to respect the original text. I tried to respect Valmiki. Valmiki, no doubt, was a great writer. He is an Adikavi. He is the first writer. And being a tribal himself, he wrote Ramayana. And his narration, everything has some meaning. And when we understand his characters, and we didn't want to disrespect the writer, in his times, it may be necessary for him to write that epic. But in our times, it is our need to rewrite that epic. So, rewriting epics, as I told you, is very common. And I often quoted Sita Kant Mahapatra, a great writer, that he told the epics never end. Epic never end. And its ending is the beginning of another story. So, it's always there, continuous telling of the epics, retold. Either as status quo, like some writers, or questioning the injustice in the epics, or covering up the injustices written by original writers like Dushyanta, as I told, Kalidasa. So something is happening around the epics because they are, as I think Marx told, that they are the childhood of the epics are the childhood of the human race, human beings. So from that childhood, we can create so many stories. When we grown up, rethink about our childhood, we may think that how beautiful the childhood was for some. And we may think it's not good also. So the courage you ask, the courage is, a writer means, what is a writer for? To show his or her courage to the society, to talk truth, to display what is happening in the society. Because of so many courageous writers, we are here to question all the development in justice also. In the judicial systems, in many systems, writers are the key players in making them more humane. So courage is one of the quality. Writing is a political act, I think. It's a political act, it's a courageous act, and writers should be politically and courageous to speak the truth, to question the authority, and to corner the wrong things of the society.
I think I won't expand on much on this. I think she said, courage. I think you need to. The very fact that you are going to write needs courage, and if you're going to write about honestly these courageous ladies, I think the courage stems from them. Courage also sort of stems from a certain anger and indignation, which, when you read their stories and the way they have been dismissed and sort of buried in the heft of the narrative, you feel that their stories people should know about them. Honestly, it's like the story of Tara. I mean, we talk about Vali and Sugriv, we forget Tara. We talk about Bhishma, and we forget about Satyavati. We talk about Shantanu, again we forget about Satyavati. I mean, Satyavati was honestly the most politically powerful person, and she actually proved the case where power corrupts equally. It is not gender-based. So here Satyavati just becomes this grand, beautiful matriarch from Matsyagandha. How she became a Satyavati? How did she become? She was again from the dregs of society. She rose in the ranks and she became the queen of Hastinapur. Or I think the story of even the Surpanaka. We sort of see her, of course, she's sort of demonized as a villain. But a sister of 4 brothers, what happened to her? Why did she do what she did? A folk story, that's what I really picked up, where she actually used Ram and Lakshman to take revenge on Ravan. But again, I think I agree with her. I try to stick to the original because I think they are the mastered storytellers. I mean, you name any emotion, any experience, any situation, any complexes, and they are there they're a treatise in psychology, if not philosophy. They're definitely in psychology because everything, that's why I think we relate to them. And when we are relating to them, what are we relating to? We are relating to, again, men's stories. Told by men, written by men, retold by men, retold by men, retold by men. So I think it's time we sort of claim that narrative, reclaim that narrative and try to show all the women who are sort of hidden. Put a spotlight on them, see them, discover them, register them, give them a voice. Most of them are silenced, and when they ask, I think they ask questions, just not ask questions, they want the answers. Because whether it is, I think I've written a book on Saraswati also, because I think Saraswati also, again, is the most marginalized goddess. I think we remember her during the puja and just before the exams. What does she symbolize? I mean, she was one goddess who was absolutely non-conformist. She did not endorse motherhood. She did not endorse marriage. This is the sort of woman, and we don't know her. We know her only as the serene-faced, white-clad sitting in a white lotus, nothing beyond that. We don't know I mean, I would call them role models because we need such role models. It's not whether it's Saraswati, Hidimbi, Urmila, I think these people are there amongst us. There are lots of Hidimbis who are raising their children single-handedly, even though married. I mean, this is like single parenting I'm talking about. Or I think Hidimbi was dismissed because she was unimportant. If she was an important person, she would have been given the respect. Because she was unimportant, she remains invisible. I think most of the problem is exactly this. We have not given a female centrality to the stories at all. So they have been dismissed as unimportant, and that's why they remain invisible. So I think the courage which you are talking is about seeing their plight. I mean, the original stories are much more feisty, much more democratic stories and the worst part is that they got distorted. They got distorted and twisted into a very conventional image which, full of patriarchal assumptions and misogyny, and this is how we are supposed to look at them. And we see them. We see Sita in a certain light. No, Sita was not a sort of a demure wife at all. She was an extremely determined woman. All of them, I'm not only talking about Sita and Draupadi because they are the female protagonists, but all the other women, given the situation, I think that will to fight back. Whether they win or lose didn't matter. It was not a battle as such where they are to win. But that very spirit to fight back, I think that is the courage I'm talking about. That is the courage which I think every woman has. And that is the story of that every woman. And I think that is what I like to tell.
Those were both beautiful answers, really good. Now I'm being asked to invite questions from the floor. So one hand raised.
Volga garu, the minute that you would take to answer the question, I would request that time be utilized to read a passage in the original Telugu version, because I have read Vimukta and I have read the translation. However much translator tries to do justice to the essence of the original, how would you translate words like sthira, sthita? So I would want to hear the original character.
Original the same thing or another?
Another, ma'am, whatever
Another
your
part.
choice.
Also about the forest. Kabanda described the beauties of forest to Sri Ramachandra and Lakshmana when he was dying. Kabanda is going to die and he described the beauties of forest, the Pampa forest to the brothers and asked them to go to the forest and meet Sabari. Rama Lakshmanulara, ఇవి వర్ష ఋతువు చివరి రోజులు కదా, మీరు పంపారణ్యానికి వెళ్తే మీకు 6 ఋతువులు ఒక్కసారే కనిపిస్తాయి. ఒక్కసారి అన్ని ఋతువుల ఆనందనాట్యాన్ని మీరు చూడగలుగుతారు. ఒకచోట వసంతం వచ్చి తమ సమస్త స్నేహ బృందంతో ఉల్లాసంగా కాలం గడుపుతున్నట్లుంటుంది. ఎక్కడి చూచినా పూలతో నిండిన చెట్లే, నేల మీద పూల వస్త్రాలు పరిచినట్లు ఉంటుంది. ఎన్ని రంగుల పూలో, సృష్టిలో ఇన్ని రంగులున్నాయా అని మీరే ఆశ్చర్యపోతాయి. అన్ని రంగుల పూలు మీరింతవరకు చూచి ఉండరు. ఇక కోయిల పాటలతో ఆ వనమంతా ఒక గీతమాలికలా ఊగిపోతుంటుంది. గాలి కూడా ఆ సంగీతాన్ని శృతిలయలు చెడకుండా మోసుకెళ్తుంది. మరోవైపు గ్రీష్మకాలపు సూర్యకాంతి, వేడిమి, ఆ వేడిని చల్లార్చే అనేక రసాల సాలాలు, ఇంకా అనేక ఫలాలు, మల్లె పొదలు. వేసవిలో చల్లదనం కలిగించే హాయిని తలుచుకోండి. మీ భార్యా వియోగ తాపాన్ని కొంచెమైనా చల్లార్చగలిగే ఋతువు వలె గ్రీష్మం తన సమస్త శీతలోపచారాలతో మీకు సేద తీరుస్తుంది. అక్కడి గంధపు చెట్లు మిమ్మల్ని అక్కున చేర్చుకుంటాయి. ఇక వర్ష ఋతువు సంగతి చెప్పే పనేముంది? నల్లని మేఘ సౌందర్యం, వాటిని చీల్చుకుని వచ్చే మెరుపులు, వాటి వెంబడి వినబడే పెను మృదంగ రావాలు, భయం లేదని మీ తలలు నిమిరే చల్లని గాలులు, తమ జల్లులతో మీ సమస్త మానసిక శారీరక గాయాలను కడిగివేసే వినిర్మల వర్షధారలు. రామ, వర్ష ఋతువు నిజంగా మనకు ప్రాణం పోస్తుంది. ఆ ధారలతో సమస్త ప్రకృతి, సమస్త జీవులు స్నానమాడి పునీతమవుతాయి. రామ, శరదృతువు రోజులను నువ్వు నీ అరణ్య సంచారంలో అనేక చోట్ల అనేక మార్లు చూసే ఉంటావు. ఇప్పుడు పంపా తీరానికి వెళ్ళి చూడండి, మీ రెండు కళ్ళు చాలవు. ఆ వెన్నెల రాత్రుల అందాన్ని మీరు ఊహించలేరు. అడవే పులకించిపోతుంది. శరత్చంద్రుడు ఆకాశంలో ఎటు సాగిపోతుంటే సమస్త జీవజాలము మంత్ర అటే సాగుతుంది. నిర్మలమైన పంపానదిలో ఆ చంద్రుని ప్రతిబింబం, ఆ వెన్నెల కాంతి ప్రతిఫలనం, దానిని చూడటానికి ఆ నదిలోకి తొంగి చూసే తరుఛాయలు, అన్నింటినీ తన చల్లని గర్భంలో విహరించమనే పంపానది. రామ, జీవితాన్ని ధన్యం చేసే దృశ్యమది. ఇక హేమంతమా, అది బంగారు లోకమే. అనేక వర్ణ ఛాయాభేదాలతో నిండిన ఆకులతో చెట్లు మెరిసిపోతుంటాయి. జీవిత చరమ దశలో తమ జీవిత సాఫల్యాన్ని తలుచుకుని మురిసిపోయే ఆ ఆకుల సందుల నుంచి మంచుని కరిగివేస్తూ వచ్చే నులివెచ్చని సూర్యకిరణాలు, ఆ వెలుగులాగా ఈ నానావిధ వర్ణ వైచిత్రి. ఆ కాలంలో పూసే పూల రంగులు లెక్కించలేము. ఆ పూల మకరందాల కోసం వచ్చే తుమ్మెద పాటలను వినటానికి మన చెవులు ఎంతో పుణ్యం చేసుకోవాలి. వెచ్చదనము, శీతలత్వము వలసిన ఆ ఋతువంటే జీవులన్నిటికీ ఎంతో ఇష్టం. ఇక శిశిరం అందరూ ఆకురాలు కాలం అనుకుంటారు. నిజమే, ఆకులు పండి ఎండి రాలిపోతాయి. కానీ ఆ వెనువెంటనే సూక్ష్మాతి సూక్ష్మ రూపంలో పచ్చదనం కన్నువిప్పుతుంది. ఆ పచ్చదనం రావటం గమనించగలిగామా? మన లోపలున్న సమస్త ఆవేదనలు, అశాంతులు ఒక్కసారిగా తొలగి మనం నిలువెత్తు ఆశల రూపాలమవుతాము. ఈ సృష్టి రహస్యమంతా మనకు కరతలామలకమైనట్లు ఒక గొప్ప శాంతి, ఒక మెలకువ, ఒక విడుదల. సమస్త సంకటాల నుంచి విడుదలైన కబంధుడు తన విడుదలకు చేరువలో ఉన్నట్లు రామలక్ష్మణులు గ్రహించి ఖిన్నవదనులైనారు.
Any more questions? We can take just one more question. Can I, she raised her hand earlier. This.
Thank you. This is a question from the liberation of Sita, not this Padma. So I come from a literary background, and in my master's, my friends and I, we prepared a script from the liberation of Sita and we performed it. And it's still one of my favorite retellings of the Indian epics. The question is, when you're reading the book, the excerpt from On the Banks of Padma, you said one line, "Forest as liberating me from the bonds of life." And I immediately connected it with the 4 women in the liberation of Sita moving to the forest. Urmila being constantly surrounded by gardens to find solace, to heal themselves. So my question is this does this also intend a physical escape, a kind of voluntary abstinence from the Ayodhya palace, does it also reinforce the binary between women nature and men culture?
Women nature, they are one. We always say Prakriti Purusha. Prakriti means women, Stri, Purusha. So going to nature is going to herself, identifying herself. So it is not escaping. It is finding her own self. For a woman, for a woman or man, I think man is also a natural animal. So for going to nature is a thing of finding their own self, identifying them as with nature. And all characters, Ahalya in the forest, Renuka in the forest, Urmila surrounded by the nature, and Sita in the forest. Most of her life she lives in the forest. So these women, these courageous women, wise women, embraces nature. So they are showing us something which is which we has to follow.
Can we just have one more, just one question? Yeah, one question. Okay, yeah, he raised his hand earlier. Yeah.
It was such a pleasure listening to you, Volga ji. You said about the epic being the childhood of humankind. Even after Bhasha literatures in the first millennium, even now in modernity, most of the writers get engaged, revisit and do the writing with regard to these two epics. Would that, including some very critical situations like in Santi Parva and all, would you still think they are still the childhood of humankind and symbols of childhood of humankind?
No, I think why we are going to them again and again, it's just a saying of a philosopher. Childhood means not just innocence or this thing. Childhood means lot of things for a child. We never see, after we grow up, we never see what is the real child perspective. We forgot to, we chided them, they are ignorant, they are innocents. But in childhood, they can think of many things. Their knowledge is growing very fast and all. So that is a small sentence. That is, as I say, epics are never, epics always continue. Epics have no endings. Its ending is really its beginning. I think that's why we are picking up epics again and again and again and again.
One question for. So why don't you have this conversation at the end? Because we are being told to end now. Really sorry about that, yeah. But thank you to the audience for being here in large numbers. And thank you to the speakers, Kavita and Miss Volga. Thank you for sharing your insights on epics and retellings.